So welcome everyone to the launch of Rocks in the River by John Ollom. My name is Greg Newton. I'm the co-founder of the Bureau of General Services Career Division with my partner, John Ollom. And we have, thank you, we have our volunteer Hal Lenza helping us out up front or the back, depending on your perspective. I guess I'm the Bureau, for those of you who don't know, is a government agency for a government that does not yet exist. And this is the service that we provide, is holding this honor for queer culture. We're in all, thank you. We're almost 10 years old. And we're we do have a suggested donation because we are an all volunteer organization. So the suggested donation is $10, but give what you can. And if money is tight and you want to buy books, you should buy books. Hold on to your money, buy books. That's a great way to support us and our authors. So I'll pass that around. There's change in here. And those of you online, if you'd like to donate, go to our website and do so, or you can give on Venmo. It's at BGSQD, which are the letters that are all around us on every box in there. If you're not already on our email list and you would like to be, you can sign up for that at the register, and you'll get an email every other Monday about our upcoming events. And now that it's September, we've got a lot going on. So we have a lot of great events planned, some new art exhibitions opening up. This is the final weekend of Cabaret's Near Miss, which is a really beautiful show we're happy to have. And that's about it from me. So I'm going to bring up John's partner, Jim Sable. Please give him a warm welcome.
First, I want to thank the Bureau for sponsoring us today. We just ask you to help support that independent bookstore out there. It's so important. Please buy your books today from the Bureau. Let me start by saying something that is really very simple. John Ollom is a force of nature. If you have never met him, let me tell you some things about him that will help you understand why I say this. John started out his journey as a pre-med student. He wasn't very particularly interested in that intensely focused study of the minutiae of details. So he took his studies into the body of a broader and more holistic direction, the study of dance, movement, and art. John excelled as a dancer, but he discovered he was also an excellent teacher. He could help people learn the technique of dance by using his knowledge of anatomy and kinesiology. This is when I met him one very lucky day. And within a few years, we formed our not-for-profit, which is called Prismatic Productions, Inc., also known as Ollom Art, which focuses on the diversity of art. Then came the creation of the works of art. He choreographed artistic works with up to 37 dancers and did pieces that were narrative, profound, and technically gorgeous. But he noticed that many people struggled in creating truly authentic art. The artist was not fully embodying the work. He knew that the best art was where the artist and the work were integrated, enmeshing meaning, emotion, and technique. He wanted to help the artists of our company discover this. So he studied. And I have never seen a person who was so much in love with reading and observing concepts and complex ideas as this man here. And with all of that, he received his MFA in interdisciplinary art from Goddard College. Yay, Goddard people that are out there. Through that research, he published his first book, Internal Landscapes. This is an extensively researched book with a massively annotated bibliography. Now, who does that in books anymore? I mean, 44 pages, I just counted them before. Internal Landscapes outlines his technique on how to become an embodied artist. From that point, John started to create more intimate works with powerful messages while teaching his fellow artists his techniques, but his research still continued. John discovered he could do more with his technique. He worked on expanding his methodology in private sessions with artists, and he noticed something really wonderful. He wasn't just helping people create art. He was helping people navigate change through movement, navigating their perceptions of things and helping them grow as a person. Now, John is multidimensional in his skills. He describes himself as an art journeyman, an author, and an artistic director, but he is so much more. But let me explain that art journeyman part, because it's not the normal definition of a journeyman. John walks beside you on your journey with the art, thus art journeyman. But he is also mystical guide, a door opener to possibilities, a movement interpreter, and very importantly, he's an architect of a safe place for someone to create, feel, and express. Sessions with John have had profound effects on people's lives, and he has touched so many people in so many ways. And he's actually saved a few people's lives in the process. So Rocks in the River shows us the expansion of his internal landscapes technique and takes us on a new journey. Now, not liking the usual restricted norms of creating a book, John created a new way of presenting his ideas. His work flows through metaphors, drawings, photos, colors, poetry, and personal stories into a uniquely creative and informative work. See if you can find the actual currents in that Rocks in the River. Today, you're going to be able to purchase Rocks in the River. We also have internal landscapes there and even some of our t-shirts. For those of you that aren't here today, you can also get autographed copies at johnollom.com. And we hope you join us all for our 20th anniversary. That company we started so long ago is celebrating 20 years anniversary in April of next year. So April 28th to April 30th, we'll be celebrating our 20th anniversary. So, and now, we go to that wonderful man who has blessed so many of us in our lives, John Ollom.
Yeah, we're done after that.
No need to say anything.
I'm done. Okay. Okay, for me to read. Here we go. Talk about taking risks, right? Rocks in the River came over the 2.5 years of the pandemic. For me, I think it was a blessing because, you know, New York is so fast and so go, 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 make your money, do your thing, took over the world. It's so ambitious. And I think for me, I caught up with myself, faced my demons, sat down and really processed. I kept getting the image, Rocks in the River. I kept seeing that. And I love to write with metaphors versus narrative, because I think with narrative for me, it gets too myopic. And I think when you have a metaphor, you can kind of enter it yourself. So the hard part for me when I wrote this was which parts of this I want to share with you. Chapter 1, well, I made it current 1, current 2, and current 3 based on the Rocks in the River, the theme. So the current 1 is the findings. These are things that I found working with my clients with specific people and being anonymous to certain findings that I did. The second part is the revelations, which kind of takes it to kind of archetypal awareness. And then the third part is the flow, which kind of gets into my art. It talks about finding your authentic current. And one more person I want to thank, besides this amazing person who I've been with for 21 years, Jim. Talk about my Rock the River. I mean, this is the person that's, as you know, a lot of you know my backstory myself. I left my family in 1991 and I haven't talked to them since. So this is my family. This is the only person I have. And then also Sylvia. I have to thank Sylvia. Sylvia Brinton Pereira is not just a young lady, she's an author. And she's someone who really not only taught me about archetypes and complexes, but taught me about the voice of an artist. The most significant thing she said to me was, I was working with a client, I said, I'm going to help them. She said, don't say you're going to help somebody, say that you're going to journey with them, because sometimes when you help somebody, you have a goal. We're going here. And when you're journeying with somebody, sometimes you may not see them yet.
or you may wish them well, or you may come back in. And she and I would talk about artistic concepts and flow like that, and I can't thank her enough. So she's up in Burlington now. Read her books too, change your life. So I will start reading. The first part I'm going to talk to you about is this is my favorite chapter in the book. It's called Gods and Goddesses. So by looking at the big picture of all of these gods and goddesses and to the great mystery of the Native American Indians, I started to bring them into my own practice. I was listening to my clients when they would have gods and goddesses appear, or I would listen to my own relationship with Cernunnos or Kali, Kuan Yin or Hecate. I listen to what they're saying. And for me, Mother Earth has been my own place of peace. And a release in a world experiencing a global pandemic right now. She's the one who is in charge, not me. So for myself, I was raised to be a good little Christian heterosexual boy. I tried this, didn't work. So now I'm more happy having homosexual sex. And with my clients, I originally thought that I was going to help them. What I was just saying to you, I would plan out what the desired art piece would be and how we would get there. Now, more and more, I listen to subconscious revelations. I try to pull back on my own personal agenda. I try not to control the outcome. And I want to thank the gods and the goddesses in the great mystery. They have been my rocks in the river. They have been my friends on the journey. They have been the colors in my tapestry that I weave. The matrix is forming as I learn and I dance and I reflect in silence. And I want to close this section by saying there's an amazing woman called Jamie Sam. She's a Native American Indian author, and she's a healer. In her book, Earth Medicine, she writes, "One morning, after dreaming of the dancing spirits, the children approached their grandmother at her loom, and they waited silently until she came to a place between the wool and the work, and she was acknowledging them with her undivided attention. They were speaking of their dreams, asking her why the blanket spirits had visited and how the spirits had come alive. The grandmother smiled as she showed the little ones the one thread of a different color that rested at the corner on the very edge of her blanket. She stopped and she explained that it was the road for the spirits to travel so they would never be caught or stranded inside of the design of the blanket. The spirits were free to help the blanket accomplish its mission of serving others. The blanket and the spirits of the land who danced in the blanket's design found wholeness by bringing warmth into the lives of those who nestled beneath. The spirits brought sweet dreams, and they taught the dreamers in their care to share their warmth." I just thought that was the most amazing thing. That's Jamie Sams. And I was talking to Sylvia about the thread that comes out the side. This is the work that I do in cartography when I'm working with somebody. I'm working in certain archetypes that come up. Can I introduce this? This is Fiorella, 1, 2, third row back. Fiorella and I have been working together for 3 years now. She's Mel in our company, and Matthew right there is in the boat. He's in our company too. They don't know each other, but Fiorella helped me a lot. We were out in Inwood Park and we were working through some archetypal currents, shall we say, and we were talking about making a piece together, and she said, let this thing be the thing. Because I think when I was thinking for so long being a choreographer and artist, I was listening with a goal of I have to put it in this shape, I have to put it in this form, I have to put it into this narrative. And I think letting myself be with her in that moment and say, oh, we're going this way, and all of a sudden Fiorella's going left. Shit, because I thought we were going this way. But it's been beautiful because it's let me sit with my own discomfort and go somewhere that I never dreamed was possible. So I think that's what it speaks to me as a specific example. Go to the next page. Okay, so this one in the 3-dimensional process. Okay. I have worked with many people who go above, below, or around their pain. They know where it is. They know what room it lies in. They spend all their lives building up a family or a career or a reputation around not being touched and not being at risk. I get it. but I do challenge them by making them aware of the room that is not being entered. I was so happy to finally find the correct phrase to explain what it is that I was doing with my clients. Internal landscapes evolution. This was my own art. I'm working with a client right now, and what I do is that I draw his boxes after our sessions. Where are we going? What is he visiting? What archetypes, demons, angels, monsters keep appearing? What I'm doing is I'm creating a 3D cartography picture. It's shifting and evolving. Every time we work together, he goes to a new space. He goes back to old patterns. He stretches his contact zones with small maneuvers. It's being weaved and it's being processed in his nightmares, in the actions of his life, in his movement art sessions with me. I held the cauldron, which was the sacred space. The growth is in the liminal space. It's in the space where we're naked, confused, sitting with the space between the rooms behind us and the ones that are in front of us. Do we run away? Do we explore a new room? Do we go back to what we know? The beautiful poetry by the Indigo Girls says, darkness has a hunger that's insatiable, but the lightness has a call that's hard to hear. I feel this deeply in my own work as I work with my clients. We can know a path and we can know what we're working on. We can feel it deep in our bones and we keep going and we're in a rut and we're walking down a path. We can't even have the courage or the awareness to go into a new room. This is where the internal landscapes methodology can be more effective than talk therapy. That a person is embodying a new energy, a new way of feeling, to see how it feels versus talking out a narrative. Embracing the Japanese wabi-sabi aesthetic of seeing the beauty in imperfection. That's in quotes imperfection. It helps many of my clients. The cut, the wound, the scar can be the beauty. We can sit in a liminal space around the wound and let the pain pour out of the rock into the Floyd River. The charge can dissipate its power of us. By embracing liminality, we can try to find our authentic journey into our most authentic self. Seeing wabi-sabi beauty as the most powerful form of beauty, we then don't judge ourselves. Navigating the cartography of internal landscapes evolution, we find our current in the river. That is ours and no one else's. It's a very simple and practical way. I can lean into my own liminal space when I'm scared or anxious. I can give myself room to exhale, to see it, and to not judge it. This is the work, and the art that's created here is sacred. So that's about the process. The last one, I'm going to end with art and poem, because I think the art can sometimes say more than words for me. So these are the art images of the book. These are the most important parts of the book. And as Jim was saying, let me show you something. You see this? You see how each page has not only art, but you'll see some of my own process, but also there's through lines. So see at the beginning, there's much more turmoil. And you start in current 1, as you get to current 3, it gets calmer and calmer. So the art images are intentional. So the last thing I want to read, these are the most important parts of this book. It's not the words that I write to describe the process. These images are the archetypes. These images are the rocks in the river. I could tell you to look at each piece and tell you what to see. I'm not going to do that. See what you see. Let it wash over you how it does. Each person will have his or her own subjective experience with art. As I reflect on each picture, I can see zones where I hold my tension. I can see dark, frustrated places where there's density. I can juxtapose that to light, open, negative spaces. This is where there's no tension for release or movement. It's a map of me. It's a cartography of my psychic flow. I can viscerally feel the dark lines pushed more and more, as if I have made some kind of mistake or a scar. It's a dense area that I need to see and acknowledge in the moments of truth that I witness. I love it's black and white, as the darkness speaks to the energy of what I hold on to. The open space speaks to me of potential. The lightness of the lines speaks to me of how tentative and how new my movements are. It shows me when I'm exploring new territories in my life. I'm not as confident. I may not draw as confidently, I may not move as confidently. I'm going into new territory. the lightness of what soft pushes that I do with my drawings. The negative space says that too, as I have not explored there yet. These are the rocks in the river. When I work with myself or with clients, we may feel that strong current in the river. If we take one wrong step, we're going to be pulled into a tumultuous sea. The fear is real. I understand that. This is why the rocks are so important. They are the art images. They are the dreams. They are the internal landscapes that let us step to a new zone. They're a place of revelation and rest in a long journey that may scare us. So I'm going to do something. When
You gotta have the mic.
when I've been working with myself, something's come up with me over the last 2 years. If you think that this spatially, for you people, so when you're thinking of like spatially, this is a gradient. Say I'm working with somebody, we're talking about, just closing your eyes and saying, this is the worst moment of my life. Close your eyes and say, this is the best moment of my life. Where are you on that gradient? And then embodying that, feeling that, where do you feel rich, where do you feel heavy, where do you feel lighter? So what I've been doing with myself is, this is my past, it's in my rock. This is my present, this is my future. So what I've been doing here is I've been realizing that when I'm trying to move, I've been working with Fiorella, but I'm also doing this myself. I start to move and I'm just closing my eyes and feeling a lot of currents and flowing in my hips, which feels very bizarre because a lot of my background is in ballet, and ballet is very much about line, tension, direction, narrative. So when I'm moving in a very flowing way, it feels very bizarre, but I was like, just let it be. And then a lot of times what happens, I'm going in my head, and the past comes into my head and it defines the future. So what I'm trying to do is really, like if this is the rock, I'm trying to literally be like right here. And when I'm talking about rocks in the river, I'm talking about giving yourself maybe a color or image that gives you the immediacy of stepping right into that space. Maybe if you're scared to go over here, it's something very tangible. So whether it's a dream, whether it's a color, for me, I kept getting this. I don't know why. I kept getting, and maybe this took maybe Hawaii. There's something about these currents that I keep, and I have no idea. And I'm like, if I got to put this in a piece, I'm like, just let it be what it is. So I keep getting the color green, which for me is the chakra, my heart chakra. So for me, it was about being open and being present in myself, which scares the shit out of me because what happens is the trauma comes back from the past. And I go, oh, it's gonna happen again. Jackie, you and I know as soon as this opens, they're like, here come the knives and all the shit's gonna happen again. And so for me, it's very difficult because what it is it's like letting yourself be in a space where you feel safe enough. It's like that rich image of the cult, like you're holding a sacred space of letting yourself, I'm just gonna be right here, right now, and literally just this much space. I don't have to go over there. I don't have to do like a life coach session. I'm like, we're gonna do 3 steps to get your goals, to get your, not that bullshit. What I'm talking about is like being just literally in this moment, so giving yourself an image or a color to work with. And I think to me, that's what Rocks in the River has done. It's given me a very tangible way to be somewhere that I'm raw or naked or scared, vulnerable, but letting myself have the courage. Being married to him, going to Mexico. I mean, when I went to Mexico, I was scared shitless, but it's like, because what happened was the traumas would come back from the past. So what I would do was the panic would come back of all of that, but to let myself be in a new situation and to let myself really have the experience. So that's just an example of Rocks in the River, very literal way. The last thing I want to show is just it's a poem that came out of this. My second book is called Dark Matter, which is, hey, how are you? My second book, Dark Matter, it's in ollomart.com. It's a video book. It's poetry, and it's shadow work. If you know Jungian psychology, your shadow is anything that you try to hide. You may put something forward to people, but your shadow is those areas. It's the shit, it's the crap, it's the things that you're hiding. So this is part of my shadow, but this one's much better. It flows off the page into a place that I don't know. A place where ocean waves conduct a symphony. I'm dancing, but without my thoughts. They only hold me back. Freedom doesn't have a name. It doesn't need to be described. It lives on its own terms. So that's it. I read. I love to talk with people. I don't like to talk at people. Being a person, I like to feel if there's a feedback. So does anybody have a question, comment, feeling, idea, anything online?
I had a question about the drawings in the
Yeah.
book. Did you revise them at all to be in the book, or are they stream of consciousness from that moment?
Nope, they're raw. Ones I love, the one that I was talking about, the black and white. Can you see this? Can you see that? It's black and white ones. These say a lot to me because I think when I was writing the book, I wanted my process to come through, and I wanted it to be very messy. You know, I think when I've been choreographing, but sometimes these images, this says so much to me. This one, can you see that? There's that little boy in the corner. I know exactly where that is. That's Washington Court. I know that's me. But what happens is he gets kind of green, and there's like this slime. And a lot of this, to me, I talk about cartography in my method of spots in my body. This for me, a lot of this in my stomach, because when I have anxiety, for me, it's always something in my stomach. These say a lot to me, and I wanted these drawings to be raw, to show my process not only in words, but in images. And these photos, these are from a piece that we did. That's me taking back the power of framing of the art that we did in the journey that I was taking with my own landscape. So I wanted them to be messy. And Jim and I spent a long time with the editor too, because they were like, you want what? You want like lines? And they're like, we don't do lines. And I'm like, oh, they're like, see
We
this?
need lines.
And I'm like, I want like a current, so this is like floating. We're like, so it's like, we do letters. That's it. So a lot of that's Jim, because Jim speaks left brain. Jim's like, oh, this one I love. This is the end. Can you see this one? This, Robert and I talked about this. Where's Robert? Remember when I was talking about I'm cutting up paper? And we would talk a lot about our art process, and I'm like, I'm cutting up color paper. I'm in my room, and I'm like, why? I'm laying on the floor, and I'm moving, and I'm cutting up shapes of paper. So this, I love. There's a lot more of these at home. That's Jim's in our.
Yes.
They're like all over. They're all over the bedroom. But to me, this says a lot. To me, this is a lot of. I mean, people who are art history majors will go, oh, it's Mary Matisse. It's like, to me, there's a lot of me of frames, places that are held, places that are open. And then that's juxtaposed to the picture of the literal rocks in the river. So if you also look at the rocks in the river, in the beginning, they're very tumultuous. It's very, a lot of lines, there's a lot of, I mean, there's the abstract version, but I was consciously in the book taking the art from like this to this. That's so the images in the art are like, you know, so that's what the visual images, the visual narrative of the book is. Because I feel like I've done it myself. I feel like I've really kind of quieted myself and found that current. And Fiorella and I talk about this with the dance world, like that's been really hard in the dance world. Like all my life, all it was I wanted to be a dancer. I didn't have plan B. And it was, you know, my parents were like, you're not gonna be a dancer, you're a fag, all that shit. So I had to like fight. So I think now, when I feel like I'm slowing down and I'm just like, this thing, what the fuck am I doing? It's kind of like letting myself really be present and not have a goal of like a dance piece, which is hard. It's really painful because it's like, I've choreographed these pieces and I've said these things and this is what this piece is about. And now it feels much more like I'm pushing myself, because if I'm not scared, I don't want to do it. I do that a lot with my art. It's like if something scares me, I go there because I feel like that's where I have to shine work. And that's why I feel like I have to dig in. That's what those art pieces are. Yeah.
Can you explain why movement has been so much more effective for you versus talk therapy? Why you think that's more effectively to work with people?
That goes to being a child of an alcoholic. I think my dad lied a lot, and I think I learned that people lie. It's something that shouldn't be the same to me. It's all about how you're crossing your hands, how you're looking with your eyes, how your shoulders down. So being a child of an alcoholic, it's if you look at my body of work, you could look at Prisoner of War Matthews, you could look at Prisoner by Projection, you could look at The Journey. There's a lot of men with their backs walking that way. my dad would always say, "I love you," as he's walking out the room. So I always got this because his dad just died right before I was born, so he had all this guilt. So I was getting all these, I'm not gonna get into all the juxtapositions of what he did versus what he said. So it's a lot of like, what they're saying and what they're doing don't match. And I think I plugged into people's movement because that's where the truth was. What was in their body? You know, what was in the things that they didn't say. We were talking about Ruth Wilson acting the other day, and I'm such a child alcoholic. I'm so like, she's talking to somebody. I said, "Jim, watch right here." She's got this poker face, and she's like, and I'm like, "Oh, bitch is pissed." There's rage, but it's all right here. You can see it like here. Nothing's going on right here, but there's this like, and just Jim, look at her neck. It's going like, it's like popping right there. I was like, but see, those are the things that I picked on as a child, because like, and then my mother was just like deeply codependent, depressed, like, oh, there's just, you walk in the room, you know, those people that you feel, they're just heavy, you know, they're just depressed, and they're like, and you would walk into the room after school, and there's just, and you just felt it in the air. There's this tangible weight of like, oh, and I was very visceral and kinesthetic and empathetic. I think as a child, I like sucked all that up. And I think now what I'm doing is I'm like, you know, I'm trying to like, and it's really hard because what I'm doing is I'm trying to feel, that's why this is so important, trying to feel what is mine and what's other people's. And I think Jenny and I have worked a lot about this. We won't talk about the one that we did not speak of, but we talk about working through ancestral trauma, chapter 1, verse 2, you know, stuff like ancestral trauma, but like, is that theirs or is that mine? You know, and like, and I think me really being quiet with myself and really kind of listening to like, am I doing this because this is what I've always done, or am I doing this because this is really authentically me? And I think I feel very naked in this book. Like you said, it's interesting that this is white and Internal Landscapes is black, because this feels like, even me wearing this, like, you know, it's always like, oh, you're a dancer, you gotta wear black, you're fat, blah, 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 all that bullshit. So now I'm like, I'm wearing white, I'm gonna be a cloud, you know, it's like, you know, but to me, that was a big deal. It's like, I feel very kind of light and very present. So it's feeling things out. It's not thinking things through. Does that make sense? Because I think I'm a very empathetic, kinesthetic person. I think I feel people more than I think about them. I just, when somebody walks in the room, I feel them. I don't think about them. It's just how I operate. It's how I'm wired.
But why is it more effective, do you think?
Effective outside of what I'm making.
Well, I think you get in touch with people, or people, and through movement more than talk. Mm-hmm. And I think you explained it in terms of how, remember the 3 things from the show we just saw last night.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
That's what
Oh that, yeah, it's huge. Okay. There's a psychiatrist, she's a psychologist. She was studying trauma, and she said trauma is put inside of the brain, it's not the frontal cortex. So if you go into a therapist and you go, okay, I've worked with a lot of people with sexual abuse, that's but if you're talking to somebody and they go, okay, this happened, blah, 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 that's a narrative. But there's something about the smells and the tastes and the images and the colors. That's where the trauma is. And I'm always like, am I crazy? Why am I picking up on this? We were watching somebody last night and she was talking about, she heard a door slam. She smelled burnt almonds. And then her mother screamed and she heard her die. She didn't see it. So later on in life, she started having these panic attacks because all of a sudden she heard the smell. She heard the sound and she smelled the smell. And it took her back into that. So the trauma was in that sound and that smell. She didn't know why. So the kinesthetic part, or when we did the show Internal Landscapes, they were talking about the limbic system of your brain. When you smell something, it takes you to a certain memory and you don't think about it. It's like chocolate chip cookies, lavender, you know, lavender for you. You know, so it's like certain smells, you're not going, oh, I'm going to have this. You just go there. You just, and they're saying something about smells. It's the different part of your brain. And this therapist was talking about trauma being locked into images, colors, sounds, smells, not the part of your brain where you watch and think through things. And I think that's why I've had sessions with people who've said, okay, this is helping me. I'm not saying talk therapy is bad. I think it's great. Sylvia's a young analyst, it's great. But what I'm saying is, I think it hits you in a different way. And I think internal landscapes has been so helpful to me. And some people saying that it's like, you got right to the essence of that moment, because there may not be a word for it. I keep going back to, me and Jenny, you and I have worked together for years, but it's like, we could talk about what's the word. There's no fucking word for it. I mean, how do you describe pain, or it's like you need to say lust or desire. It's like you can't, sometimes it's, you know, often spend all our life trying to find the right word. You know, so I think colors or smells or vibrations, to me, can plug into that part of me that it's helped me process myself. Does that make sense? Do you agree with that, Andrew?
I think so. I think doing an art form that you're not trained in,
Yeah.
and not something you're trying to succeed at in a professional way, unlocks that really well.
Yeah.
So ever since your gala in 2019, I've been doing collage like a madman.
Yeah.
And since I'm not a professional artist, I can just go right to intuition. It's really different from being a writer and thinking through everything.
How does that feel?
It's great. But it's difficult not to make it become another achievement. But you can speak to that a little bit about like that battle with
The
the ego.
judgment.
Now that you're branching out into doing this art and visual art and poetry and writing books, like how do you not turn that into sort of a career product?
Oh, bitch, I fight the demons every day.
Oh, yeah.
The judgment demons. I mean, it's like, Jim and I, we make jokes on rock, and I was like, oh, there's the demon. It's like, and then it's gonna be perfect. And then I think I'm very good at, I talk about Kwan Yin, who she is. It's interesting. She's a trans artist. She started off as a man and became a woman because she was trying to reach and work her way through Nirvana. But she had so much compassion with everybody that she worked with and loved. She said, I don't want to reach Nirvana until they reach how I transformed. So her gender changed as she was working to achieve Nirvana. But she's known for her compassion. And Jim and I'll have a little joke and like, oh, Kwan Yin. So it's like, Kwan Yin. I'm very good with Kwan Yin for other people. I'm not good with myself, and I really have to work on that, because I can be really, really kind with other people, but when it comes to myself, like the demons, that's, for me, that's chapter 1 of the complexes. That's the mother complex. That's me digging into. What's helped me with that is Mother Earth, being able to ground if I feel like the anxiety is coming up of like, this has to be a perfect product. And that goes to the wabi-sabi aesthetic of saying that the crack and the vulnerability of the room is what's beautiful. I mean, Jim and I were talking about this. If you have an actor or a dancer, you know, when you watch a dance piece and there's like all these people, there's always one person who can take your eyes off of. And you don't know why. You know, but it's not like, oh, our extension goes to here. It's not that. If there's something about being dangerous or in the moment, or like there's something kinesthetic about someone who can, you talk about, I was always happy, she's so amazing. Having those, letting your technique go away and trusting yourself to be like, I'm gonna make a mistake, I'm gonna make a moment. You could spend your whole life in art form trying to get to that place of vulnerability. But those perfectionist demons will shut you down. I mean, I work on it every day. I'm doing it right now, I'm talking to you, I'm scared shitless. So it's like, you talk about being naked, it's like, I told you the story of like, I've literally done like a naked workshop where it's like, John, can you do open naked movement for yoga and dance? And I'm like, sure. And I'm just like, woo! You know, that didn't bother me. But this is like, oh, these are my words, and this is the product. And that to me feels much more personal, and that's scary. So that's me pushing myself. And I think for me, the wounds and the vulnerability, it's the place of transformation. I think it's the place of it's fascinating to me. Can I go back to you, Fiorella? There was a moment where we were talking about not only not making a product, but like you and I were talking about certain things, putting something on stage. We were talking about putting this section of internal landscapes on stage. And I was like, you know what? What I've seen in you has been so much more beautiful than any piece of shit that I could put on stage, because it's, to me, it feels spiritual. It feels like there's something happening that is much more significant than putting something on stage. And that scares the shit out of me, because I'm like, what am I saying? Is that saying I'm going to choreograph again. And that scares the shit out of me. I'm not saying that, but I don't know. But like, what I'm saying is like, seeing somebody take a risk and be vulnerable and heal and change, what can be more beautiful? So maybe it's like, oh, John never did his show again in the center. It's like, well, fine. But it's like, to me, there's a moment of like, I can take this and make it a product, or I can let it be this thing that it is, this beautiful thing. And to me, that's what we're talking about, the Ollom Art Festival next year for our 20th. It's like letting me put in a workshop, and it's a container. I literally see it as like a cauldron or a space that I'm holding sacred space, so nobody gets hurt physically, emotionally. But you see these amazing things. And it's so much more interesting than I dedicated my life to my DSN ballet, going to Boston Ballet, Civic Group, blah, blah, blah. I was on stage with the Bolshoi and all that crap. And it was like the most, you're supposed to be flung to the heavens. And we're on stage and there's woman being lifted. And I got hired to be some little like peasant girl up walking on stage. And she was like, if you fucking lift me like this again, and she was like, you piece of shit. They were all so fucking hungry because they didn't start. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? And you're like mad, and these people are like, then they're backstage, they're like running off, and like, you bitch. You know, and this is supposed to be like, oh, but it wasn't, you know. And it's not, you know, I'm like, oh, this is supposed to be the Met. And I'm like, it's fucking freezing back here, your feet are cold, and it's like there's crappy, you know, weights. And it's like, when I'm out in the space, I'll bring you up again, I'm not gonna say, but like seeing you go running into the woods with this freedom and this honesty, I'm like, nobody else has fucking seen this. I have been given a gift by what you're sharing. And what's more valuable? I mean, I think, so then I go, you know, I had my session with Viral and I go home and I'm confused because I'm like, oh, you're supposed to be an artist and you're supposed to work and you're supposed to be in the center. And now I'm like, yeah. You know, so for Jenny, it's like, I wrote this book and I took this prize, I have to do, you know, but I think I've known your work and how it's changed. I think of Julia, I think of Peter, and I think of, but seeing you also where you were then and where you are now, how that's the real spiritual, that's the Native American Indian movement with the weaving fabric. You know, that's the beauty of the spiritual, this thing, you know, the growth, the kinesthetic changes. That sense.
Yeah.
John, is the trauma of the past a lot less in your present now?
Ooh. Okay. Jim's as an MSW MP, Master of Social Work, Master of Administration. We're not talking about social work. He was saying that when you're working with somebody in social work, you want to give them choices. And what's happened with me is because my marriage to him, it's been like 21 years together. It's actually gotten worse because what's happened is somebody was saying like they have sexual abuse usually comes up like 25 years later. Because now I'm in a safe space. And then I wasn't. And when I wasn't in a safe space, I was just running and fucking trying to stay alive. I mean, I came to New York and I hit the ground running. It's like, oh my God, I gotta get this job. I don't have an apartment. I gotta do this. I gotta audition. And I was just running and running. And if I don't stop running, I'm gonna kick that apartment. I don't have a break. And I was just constantly running. And now, then it took me a long time to let him in. I mean, Joe was like, I was like, nope. And it took me a long time. But see, now that I've let myself, it's almost like I took my armor off. And all of a sudden, it's like, all of these feelings come in. And now I'm feeling. And I think that's the compassion, because I think people that work with me, they know that I've been there and they feel that. So I'm very compassionate with them and where they're at. But when it comes to me, I'm like, oh, get your shit together, process it, we'll be done about next week. Right? It's like, you know, it's like, I'm a
It's like stereotypes in my brain.
yeah. Oh, I got this, check, took this class, went to my little therapy session. And it's like, no, it's messy. And it's, what's happened is I've opened up to spaces that I didn't know were possible. People talk about, you know, being gay or being trans. I think I like the word queer because it kind of just defines that space of other. And I think what I've found, like with Jim and I were in Mexico, I would wake up and I go, oh, I'm back with Craig on the ship. He and I were at the pool and I was having these triggers of all these like painful things that happened in the past. And Jim's like, no. So I had to fit it into those painful moments from the past instead of letting myself step on a rock in the river and be like right there. Be like, I'm in a new place and I have no fucking idea where I don't know where I'm going. But I would walk around and like the smells, like I'm seeing these flowers that exist. Working with Fiorella, she's talking about Uruguay. I'm like, I had no fucking idea. And she's telling me about these beautiful art images that I'm going to places that I didn't exist. So it's giving myself the permission to kind of like go into queer spaces and letting myself go into spaces when I'm scared. It is hard, but it's also joyful. Does that make sense? And I keep seeing green for myself, which to me is like opening up my heart. And it takes a lot of work for me to just be like, okay, just be naked, just be vulnerable, just be naked. And sometimes they'll come back. But I think what happens is that they lose them. They're not as strong. They still hit me, but they don't last as long.
They lose the focus.
Yeah, they go like this. They go, but they don't last with me as long. I can tell you what I used to do was I would talking about like my dad's. It wasn't alcoholism. It was like I would go into spaces that I was comfortable with. Being a child and alcoholic, or like I grew up with my dad passing me around frat parties, and I was sort of like the smell of beer, and my dad's best friend, and he's having sex with his girlfriend, and I'm in bed. And so it was all of these like things that are like that's what I knew. So when I came to New York or on the cruise ship or whatever, like people that were, people have that energy. They're like this. I would go like I'd just go to them. Now I'm like, oh, and then I'm like, I'm attracted. I'm like, oh, okay. So now it's like I wake up sooner. So my timeline is shorter. Of I still feel it, but it doesn't have the charge. And then you get confused and you're like, you want to write that perfect book, and you're like, now it's like, oh, okay. So now what do I do? So it's kind of like giving yourself permission to be in that new space. And that's why this Rock and River thing of me is like, I'm literally going, it's like, I can literally see like I'm going I want to go just there. And that's why the art and the drawings and the poems, they really comfort me because like I love this one. I don't know why, I just love this one. Let's see, for me to not even feel the need to explain it, that's very different than what was.
So the book is so rich and multifaceted and all these different forms in it. When you look back at the very beginning of this process of writing this book, do you have a sense of when you decided that this book was going to happen?
No, I was just writing. I didn't go, I'm gonna write a book. Internal Landscapes, I'm gonna write a book. Internal Landscapes was, I choreographed, 15, 20 years. I had all, I did The Journey, and I made Woman, Finance, Compassion. I did all of these pieces that I choreographed. I said, okay, I wanna go to graduate school, and I'm in a place where it's like, I wanna go, for someone who's not a choreographer, what is Ollom? What is Internal Landscapes? What is John's thing? And I took all that Jungian psychology, and I wanted to make it like a document. And Internal Landscapes felt very academic. And when you're in school, you're told to like justify everything you do. It was very like very laborious. I love it. It's a great book. Dark Matter was very. They feel like my babies. I just listen. Just kind of Dark Matter was like the poems. Poems feel great to me because they're very metaphoric, guttural, image based. This. I was sitting down, and what I was doing was I had notes with my clients, and I was just, oh, this happened, and I was trying to find themes, but I wasn't analyzing it. I was just kind of just writing. It's like, oh, gotta make gym, gotta do my all-four series. It became part of my ritual, and I was just letting it flow, and it feels very. One thing about this book is it feels very me. It feels very quiet. It feels very. Stripped down. Feels Robert Payne. Can I tell you Robert Payne? You know Robert. Robert is amazing. Robert did a workshop in Tampa. He just wrote this. He's the most. Robert, if you're watching. Robert, right here it is. He just said this. Robert is so poetic. Okay. I just read the first 30 pages. It flows like a calm river with strong undercurrents. I only bookmarked a couple pages when my eyes got tired. I had never read a book like this before. For all of the maleness and the femaleness herein, which we've talked about, it sits in the space of otherness. I hear flow. I see colors. I feel an earthly fluidity, refusing to freeze into dogma, but accepting of others. Perhaps embodied archetypes. I mean, that's everything. It's like, he gets it. It's a gentleman too, so. You know, but like, it's that sense of otherness, and it has a sense of, there's also a sense of rebellion in it because Robert, like you said, it's like there's these images and there's, I did have a publisher for the second one. There was a poem that they wanted to change and I wouldn't change it. So I said, fuck it. My way. I mean, that's been the story of my life. I mean, I've had to fight to do my art. I've had to fight to do New York. I've had to fight. Blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, I've always been doing it my way. And then when somebody actually responds to it, I'm surprised because there's always like, nobody's gonna, because I've always had to fight so much. And I think now I'm stopping to fight. I think this, it feels beautiful. It feels light. It feels clean. But I didn't go, I'm gonna write a book. Because what Jenny was saying of like, oh, I have to frame it, this is gonna be a book. To me, that kind of shuts it down. It's just lost my flow. So what I do is I kind of just write. I have this space, and then after a while, it starts to coalesce, and I have papers on the floor. And I'm like, okay, maybe this is the kind of book. You know, but I didn't go, I'm writing a book with this. It also feels rebellious to the sense of the academic PhD. It has to be da 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 da. It feels like I stripped all that away and I said, I'm just gonna say what I want to say. And that was scary, but it feels, I'm like tentatively going there, like letting myself be in that space and just, okay, I'm saying this. That happened with my choreography. I did Journey, I did, I remember I went to the White Oak Plantation and I did Untitled Chapter, I did Du Fond de la Vie, and I was like, this is the one, this is gonna be my classic piece, so like this. And people were like, oh, whatever. And then I did Spectre de la Rose, and I was like, I had 2 days left. So I choreographed this huge piece, this first top studio, and I had 3 days, so I had 2 days left. So I had this great song. I was like, oh, Spectre de la Rose, I did it with Amber and Muriel, and we did the Clark Theater Lincoln Center. And people love that. I was like, I just pulled that out of my ass the last 2 days. But I thought like, Du Fond de la Vie, this is Sophie was gonna do this thing, it was about war and death. People were like, oh, whatever. You know, so you have these books, you have these babies, and then it's like you let them go. And some people are like, oh, some people are like, oh, whatever. So it's like, now it has a life of its own. So it's kind of like, it feels good to me. It feels good. Hi,
I want one.
you want one?
Yes.
Go back there. You can have mine if you want. You could like, does anybody have any questions on there? Greg, what do you think on there? Or? We good? Answer your question.
No, nothing here. Oh, wait, I take that back. Dawn says, do you find anything in this book that
Is that
evolved
Dawn?
differently from internal landscape?
Say that again.
Do you find anything in this book that evolved differently from internal landscape?
Yeah, I think the Gods and Goddesses chapter, I love that chapter. I think it feels very big in the sense of, I want to talk about the pandemic, not about politics, but it's like, I was thinking really big picture with this, and like, I dealt with like sexual abuse, trauma, alcoholism, all of that, autism. What I wanted to do was talk about big picture, people changing, facing fears or change. And I think I was thinking very thematically of this book of like, what can I say about people that are wanting to make change, facing fear? I was thinking big picture, thematically, because I didn't want to get like down into like the minutia of facing a conflict, choreographing a piece. Because internal landscapes for me was very much about the work that I made, young archetypes in the movement. It was kind of like more about methodology. This is more about having worked with clients for maybe 20 years, teaching for 22 years, I had a lot of like experiences with people that I could look at and go, people get stuck and they, still we're not talking about this, you don't go, oh, I'm going to help you face this. It's not that. It's like, do it kinesthetically. It's like, when you go like this, that feels different from this.
Yeah.
It's like, it's kind of breaking it up. It's kind of like you were talking about before, letting it have that hold over you. It's kind of like you're breaking up the dam. And I think letting it be a metaphor of rocks in the river felt more like a bigger theme than miniature landscapes. So that's getting over the vibration thing. Good.
Yeah, I think that's all.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, when you talk about working with your clients rather than sort of on them,
Right.
do you feel like your work also, that you have that relationship to your work? It sounds like, it reminds me of the way I work with my characters as a novelist, how hard it was to learn how to let them lead instead of putting a frame on them. And the way you're talking about your own work, do you feel like you're sort of accompanying your work now rather than making it?
That's a very good point. Yeah, if you really talk about that. When I choreograph, I'm like, I don't want to put something on your body versus like letting it come from, that's what intro landscapes is, letting it come from inside out. Like I can say for you, like, Ori 1, 2, 3, 4, it's super there. Versus like the love of your life is over there, you're gonna see it move in a very different way because there's an internal intention. Even me directing that and saying, I want you to, but what that goes back to is being manipulative. That's me being my mother. Like, I'm gonna manipulate you so you know what you do. So what I'm trying to do now is be in the place of discomfort for myself, of not knowing where it's going to go, and it's hard. I'm not going to say this isn't easy. It's really hard because you have to, like, the fear comes up and you go, okay, what's the fear about? Why am I uncomfortable? It's about Nietzsche, chapter 3 of Intro Landscapes. It's all about power and control. People will do everything in their life to hold on to power and control. They will do everything in their life to be like, I love this marriage, I love my job, I love my job. You know, it's Emily Brunt from, I love my job. It's like, I love my job, I love my job. Like, you gotta hold on. It's like, I love this, because if I open up this just a little bit, I'll lose my shit. You know, so letting yourself kind of very lightly be in the liminal space of discomfort, letting yourself be, letting yourself. But what's important at that, Jendi, is also framing the whole session with me. Like, say you're gonna do this for yourself. Framing the whole session, like, okay, I'm gonna give myself an hour and a half. I'm gonna write about Peter. Now I'm really gonna dig in, I'm gonna do some internal landscapes. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm scared now. When all that shit comes up, what I do is I literally lay on the floor and I literally face the ground, go to Mother Earth and go, okay, what do I need to let go? And don't get up until I've let go of all of the shit, because it's like, I think you have to ground it, because it's very dangerous to bring people up into a really raw space and then leave that raw. Because I've seen a lot of acting teachers do that, and I've seen dance teachers do that, who it's like, I'm gonna push you and I want you to, you know, Martha Graham used to do that. She rip their clothes and like, I want you to push them out the stage. And it's like, I want you raw. And that's really toxic, because I've worked with people like that. And I think I've learned from choreographers that I've worked with, it's like, okay, note to self, I don't want to be like this. Because it's dangerous to leave. You may open up somebody's trauma and just leave and be like, bye. Put it in peace, and they may be like walking home, you know, on the subway, and they may never get it back. You know what I'm saying? So I think being able to frame the whole session of, okay, we went to that place, we dug in a little bit, now let's ground it, let's let go of, or ground it, so that you feel safe enough to dig in just a little bit. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, it's like magic. You always close the ritual circle.
Yes, you have that.
You don't just leave yourself open to whatever.
Yeah, because it's energy. That's all it is. It's energy. But you have to ground, because if you keep yourself like this, you're gonna be, you know. But I know a lot of choreographers and directors who love that. It's like, oh, I got you. Oh, I got you crying. It's like, it's a power trip. And I've worked with people like that. And I'm like, I don't want to be like that. But a lot of people get off on that. It's that power and control of like, let me get you just. And I don't want to do that. And if you do want to do that, it's like, okay, well, then you give you the frame that we're going to go there. Now we're going to ground that, so you feel safe again. And I think you can do that with Peter and Julie. Like, okay, I'm going to dig in here, but now I'm going to give myself safe space. go to the trees, go walk in the wood with me, calm mother. For those of you who don't know, my nickname at the House of Ollom, they call me mother, which I love. It's another queer thing. It's not a male thing. So that was Madam J when we were looking at started calling me mother. So that's a little inside joke. Jenny calls me mother. So,
You've asked for my actual level.
and then it's also, hey mother. So, yep. Is that a great one? Anybody else any questions? Hey, Tom.
I think there's more question.
There's a question.
Oh, yeah. Nina, so proud of the work that you've done with clients. Thank you for sharing your process with us this evening, and thanks for journeying with us all. So a comment, not a question.
Nina's in Denver. She's a performance artist in Denver.
And Dawn just responded, thank you, John. I'm honored to continue journeying with you through ballet and now with my partner, Teo.
Yes, thank you, Theo. Thank you, Dawn. Dawn's in San Francisco. We do Zooms every Tuesday, and Nina's in Denver. She's a performance artist doing amazing work in Denver. She just did a piece about Chicano muralists and giving safe space for a lot of artists to work together but not feel like people are getting rid of their work. She's doing really important work in Denver. So we love you, Nina. We love you, Dawn. Thank you. Denver and San Francisco. Anybody else? Okay. Well, thank you guys. That's everything. Thank you so much. I'd love to stay and talk. Thank you.